People are always asking themselves this one question. Are you, as my leader, safe for me to put my trust in you, to put my effort out there? Am I safe when I do that? So there's no substitute for always doing the right thing, for always doing what you say you're going to do. So always better to explain instead of assume that people understand what the work is and why it's important. In other words, people can respect empathy in a leader when they say, this is going to be very difficult, and here's why it needs to be done. Operate. But if you're not given that guidance, then people don't know the standard they're being held to. And if you don't make some changes, then the new team that you put together, the standard is just going to be a little bit lower than the last. If I don't think I'm going to be treated fairly, then I'm going to protect myself. Why people don't respect their leaders and why turnover is really the last symptom. It's easy to convince yourself that people are leaving your team because they're not getting paid enough, or the workload is too high, or there's not enough growth opportunities. In fact, these are things that people tell you when they do leave the team, but that's not why people leave. People leave when they no longer respect the organization, or it could be that they no longer respect you as the leader. And this doesn't happen overnight. This takes place over a period of time. It's an erosion of respect, and it's easy to see past because of our bias. We convince ourselves that everything is fine, and the problem is not us, it's other things. You see past things like people getting slowly disengaged, little performance problems. You can see right past or you wish them away. And then a little bit of turnover here, a little bit more, and then by the time you wake up, it's too late. And it's avoidable. So in this video, I want to show you 5 things. How leaders actually earn respect, how you lose respect, and what it looks like when you start to lose respect and it starts to turn into disengagement, when people aren't trying their hardest and they really kind of lose their heart for what they're supposed to be doing. Why is turnover the last lagging indicator that you're going to see? And of course, all the things you can do to prop yourself up and you don't find yourself in this situation. Hi, I'm Mike Targos, retired Marine, founder of Set at Desk Leadership Coaching. I spent 21 years in the Marine Corps, retired, got into engineering, project management, and sales. So I've seen both sides of leadership, military and civilian. This channel is about leading the team you have, not the one you wish you had. And we talk about building the skills to get the most out of that same team. What is respect, really? You think respect is a feeling, an emotion. It's not being liked, and it's not even being feared. It's definitely not authority or your title. Respect is predictability as it pertains to your principles, you as a leader, the team. And people are always asking themselves this one question. Are you, as my leader, safe for me to put my trust in you, to put my effort out there? Am I safe when I do that? And the behaviors that we're going to talk about are often described as leadership values. And while it's important to have values, just having them isn't what's important. What's important is whether or not people experience them consistently. Think about people you've disagreed with over the years. Probably a lot of them you still respected. So it wasn't an emotional thing. It was professional. You thought to yourself, can I invest myself with this leader, with this organization? Is my time going to be wasted or ignored? Am I going to be punished for trying to do a little extra? The answer is no. That's respect. And a survey is not going to bring this out in people. What people really need to do is they need to see those values being exhibited consistently in you. They watch your patterns, consistent behavior. Do you take the time to explain decisions? Do you follow through on what you say you're going to do? Is the standard the same whether or not things are going well or when there's pressure? And when things go badly, do you do what you can to protect the team? Or do they see you running to protect yourself? So realize that respect accumulates slowly over time. And in most cases, it's also lost gradually over time. How do leaders earn respect? Here are the behaviors you need. These are not buzzwords, slogans, or even personality traits. First leader behavior that you have to show is transparency. Transparency is easily misunderstood. It's an overused term, but here's what it means. Your people don't need to know every detail involved in the task at hand. Leave that to them. What they need from you is an orientation, or they need context for the reason that you're in the situation, the reason you're asking them to do work in the first place. How did you make the decision in assigning that work? What were the trade-offs that you considered? What do we know right now? What don't we know? These are things that a lot of people will assume are of no use to the people doing the actual work, but it actually goes a long way in showing that you trust people with the information. Not to mention all the good they can do with the information. The opposite, silence, not sharing any of that information, creates anxiety, whereas providing the context is going to enhance or create some stability. Leaders don't lose authority by being transparent. You've seen people who you can tell think that if I share information, then that lowers my stature or the need for me as the leader. But the opposite is true. It's not weakness or loss of authority. What it does is it signals confidence, that you're a confident leader and you're willing to share that information. The opposite is where you do lose authority, when you make people guess at what needs to be done or why we're here in the first place. Reduce people's anxiety, increase their trust. Psychologically, people process unclear or uncertainty as a threat. So when you explain why things are the way they are, you reduce the threat. You reduce the anxiety. So remember, respect grows when people are informed and when they don't feel like they're managed. Integrity. The number one quality that people are looking for in their leaders, probably the least understood. Integrity is not simply telling the truth. And it's not about being perfect. Integrity is about aligning what you say and what you do. A trap leaders can fall into is that people won't notice because they don't know the whole situation. They're not going to see that little bending of the truth or that little shortcut that you take, but they always see it. And where people are really looking for your integrity to shine through is when it's inconvenient, when you have to maybe admit a mistake. Maybe you got to reverse a decision that you made and people can tell that it's hard for you. But the beauty of it is if you can get yourself to do it, it's so powerful. It's such a great leadership enhancer for you to be able to do that. People don't want to work for perfect people, perfect leaders. They want to work for real people because they don't want to be held to some unrealistic, perfect standard either. So there's no substitute for always doing the right thing, for always doing what you say you're going to do. And you can say anything you want. You can make all these public declarations, but even the smallest infraction or the smallest lack of follow through is going to take you right back to the beginning. People will remember whether your actions matched your words. And from a philosophical standpoint, your integrity is actually the foundation of your authority. It's not simply the title. Because when you have a title without integrity, it's more of like a dictator relationship. It feels coercive to your people. Another one of the top complaints of people in the workforce is bad communication, ineffective communication from the leaders. So what really makes good communication? It isn't about being articulate. Think of good communication as making your thinking usable by others. If you have the ideas in your head, but you can't get them out and into action with people, then they're useless. Everybody's going to be frustrated, you and your team. Here's how leaders lose respect by being bad communicators. You speak in shorthand. You use a lot of jargon or industry terms that maybe not everybody understands. It comes off as trying to make yourself look smart, so you can't go wrong by explaining things in very basic terms. And then people don't like when leaders overwhelm them with detail. Again, if the detail is appropriate for what people are going to be doing, that's fine. I'm talking about the details that really are extraneous. People don't need them. It just comes off as you trying to make yourself look smart or better than them. And then when you assume too much understanding, and this is a little bit of a balancing act here, but what I'm talking about is when you assume people understand and you avoid getting into the context, getting into the reasons that the work is important in the first place, and you just assume people understand, that comes off as lazy. And it might actually come off as you don't know yourself. So always better to explain instead of assume that people understand what the work is and why it's important. In other words, people respect leaders who help them act with clarity, actually help them think more clearly. And here's the thing. Being a good, effective communicator is not about dumbing things down. It's about doing a little bit extra work on your part to translate things so the whole group, the whole team can understand and participate. Empathy, not being soft. It's not being sensitive. Clear this one up for yourself. Do yourself a favor. Clear this one up today. Empathy is about having an accurate perspective from others. Taking the perspective of others in the team and looking back at yourself in what you say and do and ask. It's taking a second to understand how your decision-making lands and is understood by others. And you do this without lowering standards. It's not about lowering standards. Empathy is not about making things easier. This is very common with new leaders is you go too far to make things easy. They want to be productive. They want to be professional. They want to do good work. That doesn't really have anything to do with you making things easy. Trust them to tell you if they got too much on their plate. Don't throttle back for no reason. People can respect empathy in a leader when they say, this is going to be very difficult, and here's why it needs to be done. That's empathy. Being committed to the team. People watch who gets involved when the bullets start flying. You could be the smartest, most organized, but if you're not involved in the tough tasks that people are really working on, and I'm not talking about things on their desk that just are time consuming. I'm talking about customer interactions. I'm talking about situations where lots of money is at risk. That's where you show your commitment to the team, by being involved shoulder to shoulder with them in those situations. Because they're watching for what leader is willing to do that. Can you absorb pressure from outside and then gradually pass that down to the team? Or do you actually accelerate it right on through? Do you take accountability publicly? This is not only the bad things. Take accountability when things go wrong. You can be for good things too, but you want to downplay the positive. You want to really be out there and visible when things go wrong. And you don't want to admit mistakes if you didn't make them. But if something is truly on you and your team, they need to hear you take accountability for that in front of them. If you want to puff up your respect at a rapid rate, share risk with your people. But have them do their jobs themselves, but be there with them when the chips are down. Get involved with the real situations, the tough ones that they deal with every day. Fairness is not about everybody getting the same amount of anything. It's not about equal outcomes. Think of fairness as a consistent process. You don't win them all. People are going to win sometimes, they're going to lose sometimes, but what they need to see in you as the leader is the way you interact with them is steady through the good and the bad. Remember, respect is rooted in consistent execution of your principles, of your values. And the worst thing of all, favoritism, and not just favoritism, perceived favoritism. A lot of times there really is none. But when people perceive that, it's just as damaging. And this is a fine line because you are going to know some people, really, you're going to like some people better than others. But it's not about liking the people that you're working with. What you need to do is you need to be a professional. You need to treat everybody with fairness, consistency, evaluate them as professionals. Even if there's somebody on your team that you don't really care for personally, in the workplace, there should be really no difference in the way they're treated from the others. And then lead by example. This is not just a show that you're putting on. This is not theater. Leading by example is maintaining your standard while under stress. It's not about doing what's easy. It's about doing what either you said you're going to do and also what needs to be done. It's about showing people what the expectation is by doing it yourself. Because people don't copy what you say, they copy what you tolerate. How respect starts to erode. Here is the uncomfortable part of the video. Respect is rarely lost only through big failures. Think of it in terms of small contradictions. Over time, when what you say does not align with what you do or what you expect people to do. And these are really easily avoidable. Here's how. Withholding context. talk a little bit about telling the story, how we got here. When you hold on to details and don't share details, that's information hoarding. And it's perceived as a lack of trust. Management knows something, but they're not telling us. They don't trust us. Loose commitments, small follow-ups being missed. When you say you're going to do something, let's meet at the end of the week and go back over this. You absolutely have to do that. You cannot miss that. The more times you promise to commit your time and don't do it, the lower your stature goes, the lower that level of respect goes. People end up concluding that you're just saying it, you're not going to follow through. It's just a placeholder. Doesn't mean anything. Inconsistent feedback. When the situation becomes tense or serious, your tone changes. When you just kind of clam up, instead of leading, instead of guiding your team, you're just silent. And if you're not giving guidance, and guidance doesn't need to be detailed. In fact, it shouldn't be detailed how to do things. Guidance is broad brushstrokes. Basically, here's what we can't do, and here's a few things that we have to do. And in the middle, there's where you operate. But if you're not given that guidance, then people don't know the standard they're being held to. If you have people on your team in their 20s, they really want that guidance. They want that one-on-one time so you can tell them how you think they're doing and set some goals out there for them. It's a lot different from 30, 40, even or 50-year-old employees or teammates. These young professionals really want that from you. You cannot overlook giving them guidance like that. Performative listening, or really just putting an act on, nodding along, pretending like you're following along. You may even say the right things in response to what people are suggesting, but nothing changes. What this tells people is he's willing to talk about things, but what's the point? Nothing's going to change. So you have to counteract that. You have to deliberately make things happen that you talk about. And when you're taking over a new team, set yourself up for some quick wins. That's one of the reasons behind it. Show that you have credibility, that you're going to execute the things, the ideas that you come up with. Deflecting pressure. There is a certain element of protection that you need to provide your team. You can't relieve them of accountability. If they're accountable for a mistake, that needs to be dealt with. But what you don't do is just let blame roll in on your people and disappear when it's coming. You got to earn people's respect by being there, really in the bad times, more important than the good times. Otherwise, people are going to say, well, when the shit hits the fan, our leader's just not going to be around. Being selective about what standards apply to what people, or uneven standards. When rules are enforced differently for different people, then people will read that as, well, if I'm close to the leader, that's what matters. It doesn't matter what I really do. I just got to try to be friends or be close or be buddies with my leader. And that's not what you want. That's not what they want. But it shows through, or that's a perception that occurs when you have different standards for different people, even if you don't intend it to be that way. That's the perception. And then breaking your standards when stress comes. You talk a good game, you've got all these processes that you're going to follow, and then you have an urgent situation come in and everything goes out the window, and it's every person on the team for themselves. All the procedure goes to the side. All the most experienced people get involved and do things themselves. And what people think when they see that going on, standards matter until they don't. It's just like a paper drill. We're going to waste a lot of time establishing a standard, but then when the real situations hit, we're not going to follow them. So all of those small infractions or small inconsistencies are going to slowly erode people's respect in you and the organization over time. There's not one that maybe seems more damaging than the other, but the point is when they all combine and they're all going on, or a few are going on at the same time across the organization, the power is really damaging. How does disrespect turn into loss of performance? When people start to lose respect for you or the team or the organization, it's not that they do something different right away or tomorrow. People don't quit, they adapt, which is really more dangerous, the more dangerous of the two, because it's harder to detect when people are adapting to that toxic environment. Really, how can you tell when somebody starts to withdraw emotionally? You're not going to notice it right away. What does it look like when somebody cares less? At first, it's not going to look any different, but that train has already left the station. And when people don't care about what they're doing, their level of effort goes down as well. They participate in things that they like doing or are convenient rather than everything that needs to be done. And you got to be careful not to overestimate your ability to pick up on what that is too. On one hand, you have to stay vigilant and watch for that, but you also can't convince yourself that you're going to pick up on things like that right away. Then when people are in this situation, politics becomes a big deal. Aligning themselves, little splinter cells or little groups within the group. Your high performers stay over there and your low performers gang up over here. A dangerous situation. And then silence. You have meetings, everybody just sits there. There's no questions after the meeting. People aren't participating. Then people start leaving the organization. All that damage is already done. Then people leave. Whereas we think, oh, the turnover is my indicator. It's the lagging indicator. It's like the thing that you notice after the damage is done. And unfortunately, who are going to be the first people to leave? It's probably your best people. They're tired of dealing with the rest of the team. And to make matters worse, the kind of people that you don't want on the team probably aren't going anywhere because they're getting away with this substandard performance, this bad behavior. And if you don't make some changes, then the new team that you put together, the standard is just going to be a little bit lower than the last time. Then what happens? Then leaders say things like, well, people just aren't as motivated as they used. They don't work as hard as they used to work. Oh, it's these young employees. So here are some things that you really got to look in the mirror and ask yourself. When you see poor performance, standards going down, poor execution, resist the urge to feel like your employees are simply misbehaving, because what's actually going on is they're responding to the environment that you've created as the leader. Realize that if effort feels unsafe, if I can't put myself out there, then I'm going to pull back. I'm not going to take those chances. I'm not going to try to do a little extra. If I don't think I'm going to be treated fairly, then I'm going to protect myself. If leaders are unpredictable, then I'm just going to play it safe. I'm going to be very conservative. I might have a new idea that I think might work, but I'm not going to try it. I don't want to get punished for that. And this might be the most important thing that I want to say in this video. When situations like this occur, resist the urge to look at the individuals, be frustrated with them, and try to figure out how to fix every little individual on your team. Look at your leaders. You got to fix your leadership behavior. So in closing, respect cannot be demanded, and it's not negotiated either. It's earned through consistent execution of leadership behavior. You're going to earn respect when you're clear, when you're a good communicator, when you're consistent, when you follow through on what you say you're going to do, when you're fair, and when you act responsibly in a visible manner, when people can see you doing the right thing. People aren't going to leave your team because the work's too hard. They're going to leave because they don't trust or respect you or the organization. When they can't invest their time and energy in a worthwhile cause, if it's just going to be wasted, they're not going to stick around. But if you're willing to look critically at yourself and ask yourself if you're doing any of these things, respect is one of the most fixable leadership problems there is out there. And remember this, if you don't fix it, your people are going to fix it for you. If you're leading people, you don't get ideal conditions. You get real ones. Leadership isn't about waiting for the team you wish you had. It's about learning how to lead the one that you have today. That's what we focus on in this channel. If this video helped you think more clearly about leadership, you might want to think about subscribing, because this channel is all about reality. It's all about learning the lessons that you might not find in a book. It might take you years of experience to accumulate. Until next time, thanks.